I believe that the straw hat that Monkey D. Luffy wears in the story is a literal weapon of woven Haki, hiding a godlike power deep inside of it. And yes, it might even literally hold the forbidden sun talked about in the Harley text, as inside of the fibers of this iconic symbol lies a god, a weapon, or even something much grander with a deep and rich history going all the way back to the Void Century, the beginning of the D-Clan itself, and maybe even thousands of years before that. Hey, what's poppin'? Now that I got your attention here, let's lock in fully on the most iconic headwear in anime. You know the hat. We all know the hat. You probably own the damn hat. I do. It's right back there. Actually, I have a second one. Better. Now, we both know the basic story as well, right? This straw hat was passed down from Goldie Roger to Red Hair Shanks after he found Laugh Tale, and after silly old Luffy ate the Gum Gum fruit, Shanks gave it to Luffy. It's a symbol for the promise that Luffy made to Shanks, and he'll return the hat once he has become a great pirate. But I bet that you've also wondered before if there's just more to it, if there's an invisible layer under the weave. Something that we all miss that ties into Bing Sake, the story of Joy Boy, and even the sun god Nika itself. After all, we do know that during the Void Century, Joy Boy actually did wear a straw hat during the flashback we see with Emeth, so what if it's his hat? And what if that straw shade protector actually is a vessel for Nika themselves, or even the Forbidden Sun? Now, how could that even work? How would a god or a giant burning ball of fire and infinite energy end up inside of a straw hat? Well, that one's actually easy because it's all about the weave, baby. And by that I mean weaving Haki. You might remember that during the absolutely bonkers climax to Egghead Island that we're getting to in the anime, we saw Emeth go full Vegeta and sacrifice himself in a massive explosion to deal with the immortal and invincible old man, the Gorosei. And that insane reveal showed us that in the hands of the right person, Haki isn't just invisible energy or willpower, it can take a very physical form. Or at the very least, it can be permanently infused into objects that have a trigger to unleash the big scary red and black lightning. Because we did see that Joy Boy could tie Haki into knots, preserve it, and release it later on. Actually surprisingly similar to the wind knots on Witheria that Nami learned about during the time skip, so if Haki can be woven as thread or knot into an actual thing, then why not into fabric? Or why not into the fibers of a hat? Now, I'll even take it a step further and say that maybe, just maybe, that is also the secret to actually making a black blade. As in actually crafting one. A god tier Haki user might be able to truly weave a blade itself out of their Haki, not just temporarily infuse the metal with their willpower, no. You make that from scratch. That would explain why there are actually only 2 confirmed black blades in the story, and why they've only been made by the strongest swordsmen of their eras, Ryuma and Mihawk. Or maybe that's just one big can of paint, who knows? Sorry, Fraud Hog, as much as I really hate to admit it, until you do more, I still gotta hold my doubts. But let's shift back to the actual video and the hat. Because there's actually an even greater connection between the Gear 5 Warrior of Liberation form and the power of Haki weaving. Turns out there's quite literally a straw hat weaving town in Wano, which is Amigasa village here. In case you don't remember, it's been a while, that's the village that Tama is from, where a big theme of weaving straw hats does exist. Which is a fun, clever play on words, since Amigasa is in fact named after a type of Japanese straw hat, and this actually plays nicely to the elements of Ace weaving Little Oars Jr. a straw hat in Wano, who I've theorized before may actually also come from a line of people affiliated with Joy Boy. Not even talking about Wano being like the most important place where the poneglyphs got made and everything, and as a matter of fact, Oars during Thriller Bark immediately go searching for a hat too. So hats are clearly important, especially the woven ones, but the biggest kicker to me is definitely the concept of the weaving town. Now, if you know my theories and you know being sake, then this part probably isn't too new to you, but if you are new, welcome first of all, love to see it, welcome aboard the Crackpot Theory Boat. More importantly, the Weaving Town is a direct translation of a line from Bing's Sake, the One Piece pirate song. A song that I have long theorized about being the true story of Joy Boy and the Void Century. I'm gonna leave a link for that video in the description of the video if you want to check it out. It's pretty awesome and definitely part of the core idea for where this comes from, but basically in the song, which I think is about Joy Boy the first pirate, we talk about leaving the Weaving Town, and that might be where Joy Boy is from. The line is Sayonara minato tsumugi no sato yo, which is being translated as farewell to the harbor to my old hometown, but that's actually a lot of nonsense because the Japanese for it actually draws specific attention to the word weaving, the weaving or the spinning town. So the line actually much more accurately translates to farewell harbor, farewell village of weaving, or goodbye port town, my village of weaving, or if you want to get a little bit more saucy and dramatic for the song, so long harbor, goodbye the land of weavers. Regardless, all of these start to make a lot more sense suddenly when you look at what we're talking about here. Joy Boy, the Haki knot, weaving, Haki, it's all really starting to click. Joy Boy weaved a knot of the most powerful Haki he had and sealed it inside of Big Robo, or Emeth, so why wouldn't he do that same thing with his iconic hats? I think that there's a totally sick through line in the story where we actually end up finding out on Laugh Tale that Joy Boy weaved something into his hat to keep it close and guarded, or since he had the Nika fruit and can seemingly create triggers for powers to be released, he may have hidden that power in the hat so that only a Gear 5 awakened user can actually use the straw hat properly. And so what if that act of passing it down through the ages actually plays into all of that idea? Now this is just me speculating, but imagine if the hat literally resonated with its wearers, like My Hero Academia style. And just imagine Joy Boy wove the hat with the will of liberation, and as it passes down through time and with different owners, the hat actually just grows in strength, gathering the essence of liberation from the mighty Haki wielders that have worn it in the past. Roger and Shanks may have literally put their Haki, knowingly or not, into the hat so that Luffy can tap into it when the time is right as well. Which might actually even explain a little bit about Roger being too early at Laugh Tale, because maybe the hat just wasn't ready to burst yet and he didn't have the Nika fruit to open it maybe. But even if that part isn't the case, we do know that this thing is way more important than, just being a hat that's kind of like a little symbol of passing on the will. This hat didn't just arrive out of nowhere and Roger didn't just buy it at a random store. Joy Boy, the first pirate ever and the successor of Nika, probably wore this very hat as he battled it out with the great demon Emu during the Void Century, assuming of course that the one that Luffy wears is the same hat, which, I mean, come on. It probably is because that's just how anime works. Old objects from the past appear in the hands of the main character. And after seeing Joy Boy block out the sun with his Mugiwara, because hats block out the sun, then well, it's probably the same one that Luffy's gonna wear too, right? Which begs the question, of course, what's up with the other giant straw hat shaped elephant in the room? We haven't talked about it yet, but yes, there is this giant frozen Mugiwara that sits in a freezer up in Marijua, getting weird, creepy visits occasionally from Emu, it seems. And because this thing appeared during their first introduction ever, we know that the thing is super important. Why is it there? Whose hat was it? Well, I think I know whose it might be. A dark, dreaded scallywag named Davy Jones, or Nika, or both even. Yeah, I did talk about this idea recently on Sunday, and I do still like it. I don't know if it's true, but to me it's pretty clear that even if they aren't the same person, that big frozen hat belongs to one of them. It's literally a symbol of liberation at this point in both real life and in the story. There's just no way that Emu's just got a chill hat of his own for some reason. In fact, maybe it's that these two straw hats, this one and Luffy's, might even need to be brought together at some point for some big reason. Just hold on to that thought for a moment. I'm gonna circle back to it in just a little bit. Because now that I've answered the question of how would the straw hat even be the source of some crazy power, I'm pretty sure you're already curious about what that power could be. Is it Nika themselves, the Forbidden Sun, or maybe even some crazy special third thing something that I haven't even talked about yet. Now, to me, there's two major things that have led me down this road to begin with. I think I owe you a little bit more context here first, because there are two major things that actually led me down this road to this theory that I'm really proud of, and I hopefully, think that you might like once you finish this video. Those two things are the Shimenawa ropes of Japan and Oda's unyielding love for wordplay. So let's get kinky with it and start it off with the ropes. Let's talk about the Shimenawa. In case you didn't know, they are those thick, twisted straw or hemp ropes that you always see hanging at Shinto shrines in Japan. And while yes, they also look very cool, they're not just there for decor. They're actually put up around the shrine and the, holy trees around there to act as spiritual barriers. In traditional Shinto belief, Shimenawa mark sacred spaces and are literally used to bind or contain divine powers. That's why they're specifically placed at spots of worship, like shrines or holy objects, since they can separate the human world from the realm of the gods, and sometimes they even serve to seal something powerful inside them, containing a spirit or a kami or even a curse or a yokai. Now, obviously, this is pretty fitting for this theory since I've already explained to you how the weaver god Joy Boy may have used, Haki to make the straw hats. But now we've got a real-world application of straw being used in traditional Japanese mythology to seal away gods or divine powers. Now, this isn't super necessary to the theory, but I think it's also interesting that these principles might actually explain the mysterious weaver cards, since they are also fabric that's kind of indestructible. It doesn't burn, it doesn't, get destroyed by water, and they're also, woven from the life essence or, the life force of an individual. So Oda has straight up written elements using this concept before. And this really makes me think that the hat itself isn't just a symbol of dreams, willpower, freedom, passing on the torch. Instead, it might be a real seal. And whether or not it's a seal for a curse or for something good, I'm still not quite certain. We'll talk about some options. There's definitely a case to be made that Joy Boy could have used the same principles of Shimenawa to lock his power or the power of the Forbidden Sun away from Imu so they couldn't get their hands on it. But I do think it would be even more likely that the hat is acting as a Shimenawa in disguise, holding something divine to give to the right person, ergo Luffy. The person who, after 800 something years now, finally followed in Joy Boy's footsteps. So I really hope now you don't think that my ramblings about a straw hat being a literal god binding artifact sound all that crazy anymore, because yeah, it's a very common thing here in Japan. But boy, are we just getting started with this, because there are so many more hidden secrets to untwine here. And to really unravel that mysterious thread, see what I did there? I said to unravel that thread, huh? Yeah? Who am I kidding? My puns are pretty bad, but Oda's are actually not that bad. And I actually think that the next secret to uncover the real power of the Straw Hat lies with Oda himself and his sense of humor, but also how he writes One Piece in general. So let's now take a look at the genius tier Japanese wordplay that Oda always weaves into his story, because in case you only got into One Piece recently, Eiichiro Oda loves playing with the Japanese language. He's a wordplay guy. Probably could be a rap god if he really wanted to, and I think it might even be one of his kinks, maybe, I don't know. All you need to know is that One Piece in Japanese is filled with word plays and number plays. For example, how Gomu, like Gomu Gomu, like the Gomu Gomu fruit is 5 and 6, so that's why Luffy's bounties are always 5 and 6 and stuff like that. And there's infinite stuff, like chapters tying into previous chapter numbers and topics, names, birthdays. It's bursting full of wordplay. I'm not going to bore you too much with examples here. You can look it up. There's plenty of resources out there of examples of this in One Piece. For this video specifically, I want to tackle all the different little language quirks that have to do with the word Mugiwara, since after I dug into it, everything really started to click with this theory. If you watch the anime, you probably know the word Mugiwara, right? But actually more accurately it would be Mugiwara Boshi. In Japanese, Mugi means wheat and barley, Wara means straw, and Boshi means hat. Simplified down, you get the very casual term Mugiwara, which is used as a label for Luffy and the Straw Hat crew, so Straw Hat Luffy, Mugiwara no Luffy in Japanese, who wears the Mugiwara Boshi. Amazing. Good job, you've passed your Japanese lesson. But when you dig a little bit deeper, the word Wara has a very different meaning too. Something that you'll have a little bit of a brain blast once I say it, because in Japanese, Wara just means laughter, like laughing. For example, when I text any of my buddies here in Japan, instead of hitting them with the good old LOL to the One Piece memes, I sent them wara. Phonetically, the sound evokes laughter. Ha ha ha, right? You get it. Over the course of time, there have been several Redditors who have made the point I'm about to make, because you can read Mugiwara as straw hat, but it can also mean laughter. So Mugiwara boshi, when said casually, could be read as straw hat while also evoking laughter's head, or head of laughter. Back to that realization, you probably had when I first told you this. Who in One Piece is all about laughter? Joy Boy and Nika, the warriors of liberation, right? Of course. People said in myth and legend to bring smiles, laughter, and joy to those who are enslaved. And the modern era's Nika is, of course, Luffy, who literally awakened Gear 5 in a raging fit of laughter. That's all that Gear 5 is. Crazy joy and crazy laughter. Isn't that just like an insane play on words? And I mean, it really does make a lot of sense to me that Oda would deeply tie in this super iconic symbol to laughter when you really think about it too, because the dude has made laughter like the biggest unique element of every single character in the series. I mean, who doesn't love Blackbeard, right? Plus, something that's definitely become more and more clear to me recently is the idea that the character Kaido specifically has now had this branding as a failed attempt at Joy Boy in a variety of ways. And I do bring it up very intentionally here because you know who literally paid to create a whole army of smile fruit users who can't stop laughing and smiling? This big guy here, Kaido, the big bad of the arc where Nika and Gear 5 are also first revealed. I see you, Oda. I see you. However, that doesn't still fully resolve the stuff with infusing Haki and the purpose of the hat. How does the wordplay even back all of that stuff up? I got you, little homie. No worries, because we just gotta fiddle with one letter for this one. Because in Japanese, you see a lot of time when you have compound words putting two nouns together, the hard K sound kind of gets replaced and softened with a G. K and G. K becomes G. And guess what happens when you take Mugi and actually turn it back to its original form, Muki? Well, what you get is the word Muki, which means infinite, endless, and timeless. Now, I know at first this must feel like a Luffy-sized stretch, but I promise you, it's not without precedent in Japanese wordplay at all. Because both in One Piece and just in everyday Japanese, like jokes and dad jokes and puns, this happens all the time where you take a word and kind of, soften it to make it fit another word. Because I think that Mugiwara might actually just be another play on the word Mukiwara, which would translate to as eternal laughter, endless laughter, always laughing, something like that. Which, by the way, guess what? Ties right back into the song Bing's Sake, as in itself, the song Bing's Sake ends with the line, never ending, ever waning, our funny traveling tale. Bing's Sake is quite literally a laugh tale that's a play on the word Mugiwara, or more technically, Mukiwara. So this really makes you wonder if Roger chose to name the island Laugh Tale because of Bing Sake, or for the sake of this theory that Roger didn't actually name the island, since it straight up might have already been the end of his and Joy Boy's Laugh Tale. Now on the flip side, the idea that endless laughter is tied to the wordplay of Nika, Joy Boy, and Luffy is the direct opposite of the wordplay for Imu, since Mu, the term that Imu uses to describe themselves, means nothingness, non-existence, void. But let's zoom out a little bit now and tie in some mythic, cosmic threats that play into the visual shape of the hat itself. Joy Boy, as we now know, wore one of these bad boys, and he was attempting to bring the new dawn. And it's actually interesting because when would you wear a sun hat, right? Well, when it's very bright, when you want to shield yourself from the sun and the sun has risen, dawn. Well, then there's the visual language, obviously, of a hat, of the straw hat, because it's got this big white brim and the circle that pops out in the center. Visually, if you just do the silhouette, it does look like a sunrise, or like a sunset technically too, right? Probably a sunrise, since, well, that's kind of the whole goal of the series with the dawn thing. So I would argue that there's a pretty solid case to be made that between the visual and wordplay, the straw hat is quite literally a symbol of the new dawn. And what better visual joke would it be if Oda literally made the hat contain the forbidden sun that its shape represents? As you can tell, I'm having a lot of fun with this. It's really cool to me, and I really hope you're feeling the same way, because if you're just sitting there looking at this like, what is he talking about? I'm very sorry. I'm very excited about this. But this brings us to another question, because how would anything of that tie into the entire god idea, right? How would it work if, say, Nika or Davy Jones or any other god were actually sealed inside one of these hats? Well, luckily enough, there's some more wordplay that helps reveal one of the strongest ideas, I think, for what the D represents in the D clan. It's these nuts. Now, conveniently, Oda is a goated writer and uses specific words that let the Japanese speakers unravel some of the coolest bits about the series first, while we kind of English speakers get left behind. The only reason I learned Japanese to begin with. I'm actually very hopeful that the new shift to a seasonal set of anime will give the Western audience a chance of getting more accurate translations and these subtle wordplay elements maybe cleared up, since this never really seems to get them too well, I gotta say. The Straw Hat Pirates are actually what really helped me come to this realization to begin with, because you see, in One Piece, Oda labels like 99% of all pirate crews as Kaizokudan, which just means pirate group or crew, like the Akagami Kaizokudan, the Red Hair Pirates, the Roja Kaizokudan, the Roja Pirates. However, the Straw Hat crew don't follow this very common theme. They're called the Mugiwara Ichimi. And Ichimi actually means clan or family, which is shared with, you guessed it, the D no Ichizoku, the D clan. And so when you bring all of this wordplay to a head, the Straw Hat crew is effectively called in Japanese the Ever Laughing Clan, Mugiwara Ichimi, and their symbol is the straw hat, a symbol that could be a woven form of immense haki shaped like the sun. And I think that all of this lines up like almost too well, since the D clan are all these total badasses who will laugh and smile in the face of death itself. And we do know that as of chapter 1164, Davy D. Jones inspired his legacy to have the will of Davy, which could just very well be the literal meaning of the D clan, which also makes me think that Davy D. Jones and Joy Boy are two men from the same straw bundle, so to say, which opened up a really cool thought in my mind. So far, we know about two important straw hats in the story, Luffy's and the one that Imu has in the freezer. So what if both these straw hats are literally their big wills sealed in a physical form, the two people that Imu feared the most? And now here's where things do get a little bit more speculative, I will say, but that's what makes the theory part even more fun, I think. Firstly, I want to point out that the Davy clan is seen wearing straw hats, specifically this guy who is either Rox's dad or granddad who wears specifically a straw hat. So it's kind of interesting to see that if Joy Boy and Davy Jones are two different people, as this chapter seems to imply, and Roger, the Gold family, seems to be tied to Joy Boy since they were passing down that hat, and the Davy family has also a straw hat who are tied to Davy Jones, the idea that two of these straw hats exist isn't too crazy to really think about. Also, we do know that at some point the world has been flooded and Davy Jones's locker is at the bottom of the ocean, so maybe Imu is the one who flooded the world to seal Big Dog Davy away. They explicitly state that they have some sort of special bond, you know, Imu and Davy Jones in chapter 1164, so maybe the idea that Imu is using Davy's power is right through the straw hat. Now, since I've got you locked in on the idea that the straw hat is incredibly important now, let's keep the ideas for what's woven inside of it going here. Because I've already, of course, brought up a few options, but I definitely think there are some other things that I haven't fully explored at all yet with you. For example, another massive idea could be that the Forbidden Sun is the large hat in the freezer, sealed away, kept cold. And in that cool way, the small straw hat that Luffy wears could be a fragment or echo of that Forbidden Sun. That would mean that the hat is actually physically powerful, not just metaphorically. And I can totally see a world where Oda decided to make that dang hat secretly an anchor of world-changing power from the Void Century that Luffy's just casually carrying around. Well, not casually, it's his treasure, but you get the idea, right? And considering that Imu keeps it literally locked up on ice, I think there's a super big hilarity to, like, being, hey, I have this Forbidden Sun, a nuclear reactor flame type thing of insane infinite power, but it's sealed in this stupid hat and I don't know how to use it. So Vegapunk, can you make me a different one? And so that's why they hired Vegapunk to make the Mother Flame, since Nika or Joy Boy or someone hit him with the biggest middle finger, sealing the most powerful energy source of the first world of all time inside a stupid straw hat. This might also answer one of these weird lingering questions in One Piece, which is how the hell does Luffy conjure fire with Red Rock and Red Hawk? I mean, it could be his Gear 5 imagination powers, of course, but how cool would it be if he was accidentally tapping into that forbidden flame power of his straw hat instead. But then there's also a completely different angle I haven't touched at all yet, because since there are two Straw Hats and they both form that D shape, maybe they need to come together, two halves of some sort of cosmic object like, say, the sun and the moon, or light and darkness. Might even explain the people of the half moon and people of the full moon part of the Harley text, or one big power object was actually split into two, and like the worst thing ever would be Luffy bringing the hat to Emu. Wouldn't that be like the gnarliest twist ever? By the way, speaking of gnarly, my new podcast with Connor, aka the CDawg, is out now over on Drink Sake, and we talked about a ton of cool stuff, including One Piece. Most importantly though, I was able to talk to him about if One Piece is political or not, something you community fans might know was a little bit of a meme for a while, so check that out on the Drink Sake channel in the description below. Plug over, back to the theory. Because another angle for what's in these Straw Hats has to do with Romance Dawn. If you watch the channel, you probably know I'm really fond of the idea that maybe Romance Dawn, the name of the first chapter and the original title for the series, is actually way more important to this part of the lore than we all think. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally feel like I've been seeing Oda weave more and more of the concept of romance into the series recently. Like, the fact that all of God Valley was basically waged over Shaki and Zebek wanting to save his wife and kids. The whole dang Harold and Rocks flashback has been chock full of love, romance, and partnership, and the same can also be said about Kuma, the othermost Nika-esque character story with Ginny and Bonnie, so there's definitely more and more growing themes of love and romance that make me think that maybe the two Straw Hats that we see have things sealed inside of them, like two ancient gods who are in love. And I might have even nailed who those gods are, because they might be the sun god and the moon god, but the sun god might not actually even be Nika. Because let's face it, the Nika fruit gives Luffy fun and cool powers, right? But the aesthetic and other connections in the series make me think that Nika may be much more affiliated with the moon. Think about it, Gear 5's reveal happens in front of a moon, the Minks have a similar cool color palette and Gear 5 design, they awaken during the full moon, and of course the symbol of Joy Boy has one big circle with 8 small circles around it, which, like, sure is commonly meant to represent a sun, but it actually could also perfectly be designed to be a moon chart, which is commonly looking like this, and showing the 8 phases of the moon. Just saying, Moon Piece is real, man. Plus, the ancient people of the world were revealed to have come down from the moon during Enel's cover story, and the followers of Joy Boy are the Lunarians, whose name is based on the world Lunar and the moon. So could it be that there was once a real sun god or sun goddess that was sealed away in Emu's big hat, and she is the Forbidden Sun? Meanwhile, Luffy embodies Nika, or is literally wearing the Nika hat, which more accurately would represent the moon. And since there are two Straw Hats, Luffy and the one in the Holy Land, maybe they need to come together, as the Harley suggests at the end of each line. They will never meet again, they will never meet again, but now in the third world, they will meet again and fall in love again. Really cute. Speaking of cute, I kind of wonder if Oda's been foreshadowing some stuff with all of the characters, how they might settle down in the story. We had Zebek and Itties, but also what about Luffy, Law, Zoro, Sanji? Who are they gonna tie the eternal Haki knot with? Well, if you're curious, check out this video where I break down all the possible couples in the endgame. And thanks for watching this video. Thanks to all the Patreons, and I will see you for actually another theory on Thursday.